Okay, in this training video, we're going to go over the cities in the USA that are prime for lead generation for almost all niches. So the way that I find the proper city with the match for the niche is to put 450 of the highest population cities in an Excel sheet, and you will see these are listed from the highest population to the lowest. So as I scroll down the page, the top 200 population cities end about right here. But I've included the next 250 population cities, as in some niches, a smaller size city will produce just as many, if not more, leads at sometimes 1/10 the cost in pay-per-click as opposed to some of these cities. So you would just copy this list of cities, which will be an Excel sheet in the resources area, and type in the niche. Whatever niche that you would like to start producing leads for, you just type the name of that niche in here, and then you would copy and paste these two columns into the Google keyword tool, which most people know. If you just type into Google keyword tool, or if you have a pay-per-click account, you can just go up to the top and scroll on keyword tool in a drop-down, and you go right to the Google keyword tool. You can copy and paste this entire two columns in there, and Google will do a search for keywords that relate to these 450 city niches. And so what you want when you do a search in a Google keyword tool, you will also want the amount of searches in a column globally and locally, and then the other column that you'll need to make sure you click on that column is the average PPC cost. And that's how I determine which city and which niche to go after. Obviously, some niches as lawyers are going to be very expensive in almost all cities for pay-per-click. And then other niches that are very small, tight niches, the cost can be relatively low in every city, like $1 a click, less than $1. So it completely depends on the niche and the city. But generally speaking, these top 200 cities are almost always going to have a higher click cost for the same niche, and the bottom 250 cities are going to have a lower click cost on pay-per-click. And the cost is determined almost entirely by supply and demand. Remember, Google makes the majority of their money from pay-per-click, and the majority of that money is from the top 3 positions on the upper top left-hand corner of a search page on Google. So they want everybody to go after the biggest city and the most expensive niche because that's where they make their money. But remember, a click is the same whether you pay $1 or $100. The search volume for niches will be higher in these cities, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you will get more calls for a client. It's been my experience that I get less calls for a client in these cities because of competition. It's harder to get in the number 1, 2, or 3 position. It takes longer. It takes a lot more money, sometimes 10 times more money than the lower cities. But if you have a client in these cities and they're set up there and they want to expand their business, you just have to tell them it's going to cost more money in this city, as opposed to if you had your business set up in one of these cities down in the lower part of the list. The cost will be a lot less, and you will get as many, and most of the time, more calls in these cities. For one reason, and that's because most of the big players in pay-per-click almost always start up here in the big cities. And that's what you're fighting. You're fighting competition. You're fighting them for position for those top 3 spots on the upper left-hand corner of the page. So that's how I determine a city and a niche. And it really depends on really the niche first. I mean, if you want to go after dentists or doctors or lawyers, then those costs will almost always be high. If you want to go after a more specific niche, like a certain type of dentist, a certain type of lawyer, a painting contractor, it's just going to be less. So you're going to have to plug these in to the Google Keyword Tool. You're going to have to get those 3 columns, and then you're going to have to look at the cost for your niche in these cities. If the cost is outrageous, $20 to $50 a click, you may just want to skip over that, or just go down to the bottom of this list, find the cities down there where the cost could be $1 or $2 or $3 a click, and just start there and look for a client in those smaller cities, because it's going to be much easier all the way around. Up here, it's just going to be very difficult unless you find an off-the-wall niche that a lot of people aren't messing with, and the search volume is fairly high, and the cost is relatively low. That's a winner. So high search volume, low pay-per-click cost is what you're looking for in a city. When you find that, start there. Your chances are 10 times more than if you go with a big city, high pay-per-click cost. You may have a high search, but forget about the search volume. It's all about competition. You want to be in a city where you can get that number 1 spot, number 1, 2, or 3 in a day or two, and when you do that, game's over. The phone will ring. Your client gets calls. They're happy. You don't have to charge them an arm and a leg, so you're much easier to close clients. It just works really good all the way around. That has been my experience. So that is how I find a niche that works with the city. There's no simple way to do it. This is the simplest way that I've ever found. Copy and paste this into Google Keyword Tool. You get those 3 columns over here. You look for high search, low cost. High search, low cost. Then you filter out those cities and niches into another spreadsheet, and you just start going through the rest of the training and find a client and start selling leads. When I decided to do this, it almost works every time. Unfortunately, you will get leads from these cities here, and you can do it. I mean, I've done it, but you have to charge more. So that's how you find the proper business model for your niche. It's the city and the niche and the cost out here will determine your success or not. When you get the right formula, it's almost 100% winner. When you go the wrong way, which would be a lower search and high pay-per-click cost, it's very difficult because the higher the pay-per-click cost, the more competitors, and it's just very difficult. So this is how you find the niche in the city, and if you do it right, it will work and you will make a lot of money selling leads.